Be me. Actually, on second thought, don't be me. At least, not the person I was until a few months ago. My name is Robin. I'm a college student, and up until recently, my entire online identity was built around one thing: fighting for single mothers. I was the digital warrior you read about. My feed was a carefully curated wall of infographics, statistics about unpaid child support, and screenshots of arguments I'd had with men in comment sections. Hashtags like #PayUp, #EndThePatriarchy, and #DeadbeatDads were my bread and butter. I truly, genuinely believed I was on the right side of history. In my mind, the world was simple. There were struggling, heroic single mothers, and there were the men who abandoned them and their responsibilities. There was no middle ground. My home life was, ironically, the perfect counter-argument, but I never saw it that way. I live with my mom, Linda, and my stepdad, Frank. My own biological father was never in the picture. He left when I was a baby, and that was that. No contact, no money, nothing. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat until she met Frank when I was about 8. Frank was, well, he was everything my online crusade was against. He was a man who stepped up. He took on another man's child and raised me as his own without a single complaint. He's a quiet guy, works in construction management or something like that. Long hours, physically demanding work. He'd come home covered in dust, tired to the bone, but he always had a smile for me and my mom. He paid for my braces. He taught me how to drive. When I got into college, he and my mom sat me down, and he told me not to worry about the tuition, that they had it covered. He was my hero. He was the exception that proved the rule. Because he was so good, it made the perceived failure of all other men seem even worse. I'd be at the dinner table, scrolling through my phone, and just get furious. "Can you believe this?" I'd say, showing my mom a post from a single mother who couldn't afford school supplies for her kids. Her ex makes 6 figures, and he's claiming he can't afford a few hundred a month. It's disgusting. My mom would just nod and say something gentle, like, "That's a difficult situation, sweetie," trying to steer the conversation elsewhere. Frank would just eat his dinner. He never got involved. I always figured it was because he agreed with me. Or maybe he was just too tired from work to engage with online drama. His silence felt like solidarity. Looking back, I can't believe how blind I was. The whole thing came crashing down on a random Saturday. I think it was in April or May, when the weather was just starting to get nice. My mom was in one of her spring cleaning moods. She was on the phone with her sister, my aunt, and they were getting all sentimental about old family photos. After she hung up, she came to me. "Robin, honey, could you do me a huge favor? I need you to find that big blue photo album, the one with all your baby pictures. I think it's in the storage closet in the basement." I groaned. The basement storage closet was a black hole of forgotten things. Christmas decorations, old furniture, and dozens of unlabeled cardboard boxes. But my mom asked nicely, so I put on some music and headed down there, prepared for a long and dusty search. The basement was musty and cool. I flicked on the single bare light bulb, which cast long shadows across the room. I started shifting boxes. Holiday stuff. Old kitchenware. Linda's college books. It took a while, but I finally saw a stack of photo albums in the back corner, tucked behind an old armchair. As I pulled them out, I knocked over a smaller, unmarked cardboard box that was sitting on the chair. It wasn't taped shut, and the contents spilled out onto the dusty concrete floor. It was just a bunch of old papers and file folders. My first instinct was to just shove it all back in and forget about it. It looked like boring adult stuff. But then a single folder slid out, separate from the rest. The tab on it was neatly labeled in Frank's blocky handwriting, "Frank, Personal." My curiosity got the better of me. I had never, ever known Frank to be a secretive person. He was an open book. What could possibly be in a personal box hidden away in the basement? I knelt down and picked up the folder. It was thick. I told myself I was just going to peek. Just a quick look to see what it was. Maybe old blueprints from a job, or something equally boring. I opened it. The first things I saw were bank statements. Pages and pages of them, organized by year. They went back over a decade. I scanned the first page. It was a statement for a checking account under Frank's name. I saw his regular paychecks deposited. I saw mortgage payments, utility bills, normal stuff. Then I saw a transfer. It was a massive number, a recurring monthly payment that was, without exaggeration, more than my mom made in a month when she was working full-time. My blood ran cold. My activist brain, trained to see the worst in men, jumped to one immediate, sickening conclusion. He had a secret family, a mistress. The man I looked up to, the man who was my shining example of male integrity, was a liar and a cheat. The money wasn't for us. It was going somewhere else, every single month, like clockwork. I felt a wave of nausea. My hands started to shake. How could he do this to my mom? To us? All those years he came home tired. Was it from working to support someone else? I started frantically flipping through the pages, looking for a name, an address, any clue. My anger was building. I felt betrayed on a level I couldn't even describe. My entire worldview, which had a special place for Frank on a pedestal, was about to be shattered. I found another set of documents buried beneath the bank statements. These weren't from a bank. They were on thick, formal paper. The letterhead at the top read, City Family Court. My confusion overtook my anger for a second. Why would Frank have family court documents? He and my mom were never married in a big ceremony. They just went to the courthouse, and they were happy. I started to read the document. It was dense with legal language, but a few words jumped out at me. Order for child support. Petitioner, Joan, last name. Respondent, Frank, last name. I had to read it 3 times to understand. Joan. I recognized the name. My mom had mentioned her once, a long time ago in passing. Frank's ex-wife, from before he met us. My mom said they had a son together. This wasn't a payment to a mistress. This was alimony. This was child support. The number was still staggering. I did some quick math in my head. He had been paying this amount every month, without fail, for at least 15 years, since long before he even met my mother. The documentation was meticulous. Carbon copies of checks, bank transfer confirmations, letters from lawyers acknowledging receipt of payment. There was not a single missed or late payment in the entire stack. I just sat there, on the cold concrete floor of my basement, surrounded by dust and memories. I felt nothing. Just a deep, hollow confusion. This didn't fit my narrative. This didn't fit my world. Men didn't do this. Men ran away. They fought over every penny. They hid their income. They were deadbeats. That's what I knew. That's what I preached. But here was the proof, in my hands. The one good man I knew had a past I knew nothing about, and in that past, he wasn't the exception to my rule. He was a man who paid. He paid a fortune. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Okay, so he paid. But why so much? The woman must have been in a terrible situation. Maybe their son was seriously ill and needed constant medical care. Yes, that had to be it. That would make sense. Frank, being the good man he was paying for life-saving treatments for his biological son. That felt right. It preserved my worldview, mostly. It meant the system was working. A mother and a sick child were being taken care of. Frank was just doing his duty. Feeling a little more steady, I gathered up all the papers, put them back in the box as neatly as I could, and took the personal folder with me. I needed to know for sure. I needed to see the full picture. I went up to my room, closed the door, and opened my laptop. I typed Joan, last name, into the search bar. What I found made the betrayal I'd felt just moments earlier seem like a joke. The real devastation was just beginning. I typed her name into the search bar, my heart pounding. A few public profiles popped up, but it was easy to find the right one. The profile picture matched a small, older photo I'd found in the box. Her page was public. I clicked on it, and my jaw went slack. The theory of a struggling mother with a sick child evaporated in about 5 seconds. Joan's life wasn't just comfortable, it was luxurious. It was the kind of life you see in magazines. Her profile picture was of her on a balcony overlooking the ocean, somewhere tropical and expensive, holding a champagne flute. She looked incredible. Manicured nails, perfect hair, designer sunglasses. I started scrolling. It was a highlight reel of a life I couldn't even imagine. There was a photo album titled European Summer. Pictures of her in front of the Eiffel Tower, eating pasta by a canal in Venice, posing with a ridiculously expensive handbag in Milan. The date stamp on the album was from 3 years ago. Another album, Ski Trip in Aspen. Another, Weekend in NYC, featuring shopping bags from stores I'd only ever seen in movies. Her car was a late-model luxury SUV, the kind that costs more than a year of my college tuition. She posted a picture of it the day she bought it with the caption, "Treat yourself." Number independent woman, girl boss. My mind was spinning. I went back to the box of documents on my floor and pulled out the bank statements from that same year. I found the corresponding months for her European Summer. Frank's payments went out on the 1st of June, July, and August, huge 4-figure sums. Right next to those dates on her social media, there were pictures of her sipping cocktails on the French Riviera. It wasn't a coincidence. It was cause and effect. Frank was working himself to the bone, and his money was funding this woman's lavish lifestyle. The child support wasn't for support. It was her personal travel fund, her designer wardrobe allowance, her new car payment. I felt a hot, new kind of anger. It wasn't the righteous, detached anger I felt for strangers online. This was personal. This was Frank's sweat and sacrifice being turned into Instagram posts. But what about their son? The reason for all of this. He had to be okay, right? Maybe she just spent the leftover money on herself. Maybe the boy had everything he ever needed. It didn't take long to find his profile. He was tagged in a few of his mother's pictures, though he rarely appeared in the flashy vacation shots. His page was the complete opposite of hers. It was the normal, slightly messy profile of a regular teenager. His pictures were of him and his friends skateboarding at a local park, playing video games in what looked like a small, sparsely decorated bedroom, wearing band t-shirts and ripped jeans. He didn't look unhappy, just normal. I scrolled deeper, going back a few years, trying to piece together a story, and then I found it, a post from about 2 years ago. It was a picture of a new video game that had just been released. The caption read, "Man, I wish. Gotta start saving up." A few of his friends commented, "Ask your mom for an advance on your allowance," and "Doesn't your dad help out?" His reply to that comment hit me like a physical blow. LOL, no. My mom says he doesn't send anything. It's whatever. He doesn't send anything. I looked at the documents spread across my floor, the proof of thousands upon thousands of dollars sent every single month for his entire life. Money that was legally designated for him. I found another post from last year. He was asking if anyone knew of any local places hiring for part-time after-school work. He wanted to buy a new graphics card for his computer. Frank had probably worked a double shift that same week, exhausted and sore, to make the payment that would have bought that graphics card 10 times over. a payment his son was told never existed. Not only was she taking the money, she was turning their son against his own father. She was painting Frank as the deadbeat, the very monster I spent all my time fighting against online. The irony was so thick, I felt like I was choking on it. Frank wasn't just a man who paid. He was a man who paid while being slandered. He was funding the very lifestyle that allowed his ex-wife to lie to their son about his character. I sat there for what felt like hours, just staring at the screen. The entire foundation of my belief system was gone. It wasn't just cracked, it had been pulverized into dust. The world wasn't black and white. It wasn't a simple story of good women and bad men. It was a messy, complicated, and deeply unfair place. And I, in my self-righteous crusade, had been one of the useful idiots cheering for the wrong side, armed with incomplete stories and a childish sense of justice. I carefully put all the documents back into the folder. I walked out of my room and went downstairs. My mom was in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. She saw the folder in my hand and her face just fell. She knew exactly what it was. "I found this in the basement," I said. My voice was quiet, hoarse. She didn't say anything. She just dried her hands on a towel and sat down at the kitchen table, motioning for me to join her. I sat down opposite her and pushed the folder across the table. "You knew," I said. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a statement. She nodded slowly. "I've known since before Frank and I even moved in together." He was completely honest with me about his situation. She told me the whole story. When they divorced, Joan fought for everything. She used their son as a weapon from the very beginning. The court battle was a nightmare. It cost Frank thousands in legal fees and left him emotionally wrecked. He tried to fight for a more reasonable arrangement once. He presented evidence that she was well off and that the money wasn't being used for the child. In response, she threatened to move across the country and ensure he'd never see his son again. The legal system, she explained, was so biased in her favor that it was a credible threat. So Frank made a choice. He decided to stop fighting. He would pay whatever they told him to pay. He would work as hard as he needed to. In exchange, he got to see his son on weekends and for a few weeks in the summer. He chose a relationship with his son over a war for his money. "He worked 2 jobs for the first 5 years we were together, Robin," my mom said, her voice soft. "He did construction during the day and worked security at a warehouse on weekends. He did it so we could have this house, so you could have everything you needed, and so he could still make those payments without fail." She looked me straight in the eye. "And in all the years I have known that man, I have never once heard him complain about it. Not once. He just accepted it as his responsibility." I went back to my room. I didn't cry. I was beyond tears. I felt a profound sense of shame that was so heavy it felt like a physical weight on my chest. My whole identity, my online persona, was a mockery of the truth of my own life. I had held up Frank as the exception, when in reality, he was the silent, struggling man I was demonizing every single day. The men I argued with online, the ones who tried to explain that the system was complicated, that they were trying their best, I had dismissed them all as whiners and deadbeats. How many of them were like Frank, trapped in a system, paying faithfully, while being told they were villains? I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. My social media page loaded. My latest post was a smug, self-satisfied takedown of a man who had dared to question the child support formula in his state. It had over 1,000 likes. My followers were cheering me on in the comments. "You tell him, Queen? Men are trash. Preach!" I felt sick. My gaze drifted to a framed photo on my desk. It was from my high school graduation. I was in my cap and gown, grinning from ear to ear. Frank had his arm around me, looking prouder than anyone. I remembered he'd worked an overnight shift the night before, but refused to miss the ceremony. My fingers trembled as I moved the mouse. I didn't write an explanation. I didn't make a grand announcement. Who would I even be explaining it to? I just started at the top of my page and began deleting. Every post, every infographic, every shared article, every smug comment. One by one, I erased my entire digital history of ignorance and arrogance. When the page was blank, I went into my account settings. I clicked the button that said Deactivate Account. A confirmation box popped up. Are you sure? I clicked yes, without a moment's hesitation. The screen went blank. And for the first time in a very long time, my world was quiet. My crusade was over. My